Yo, what's up with y'all boys and girls, man? Hey, I'm your host, Jay Briggs, here with Picks from the DawgHouse, NFL edition. Look, y'all know who's here with me. I got Money Man Mitch, and I got Big Al McMorty back with us this week as we're about to cook up every single game on the card. So we appreciate each and every one of you that continue to tune in and watch this video. All we ask is that you smash that like button for us, and remember, our best bets, the plays that we love the most, the plays that we have the most money on, you can find those over at Pick Dawgz Premium. There's a link for all of that in the description below. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we ain't here to waste your time. We're here to help you make some money. Let's hop right into this Week 3 NFL action. First game of the week, Thursday Night Football. Hey, we got the New England Patriots out on the road facing the New York Jets. Jets favored by 6. Are my eyes correct? The Jets haven't been this big of a favorite in my entire lifetime over the Patriots, man. Man, how the mighty have fallen. Guys, how y'all feeling here in this one? Mitch, how you feeling?
I think that this just looks to be too big of a number for my taste. And the Jets, while you squeaked by the Tennessee Titans by a touchdown in a game where, you really needed a guy like Will Levis on the other side of the field, certainly doesn't make you a team that's going to go out and beat a team that just won't beat themselves. I think it's just an exact opposite matchup here for the Patriots or for the Jets, where they played a team that could beat themselves. And, now they play a team that doesn't beat themselves. And, of course, when they play a team that's better than them, well, they got their bell rung in game one. So I'm going to take the points with the Patriots, sprinkle a little on the money line.
I can see, hey, fair. Big Al, how you feeling here?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned how in your lifetime you've never seen a number like this. I mean, these two teams, they met last year in the final week of the season. The Jets actually upset New England 17-3 as a 2.5-point road underdog. But before that victory, the New York Jets had lost 15 straight games to the Patriots, going 4-11 ATS. When I look at the first 2 weeks of this NFL season, the most notable statistic that jumps out at me is that underdogs of +6 or more points are now 8-0 ATS. So I'm not going to buck that. The number here is at 6. I'll take the 6 with the Patriots.
I'm going to grab the points with the Patriots as well. Just based on the eye test and what I've seen from these two teams on the field. I think the Patriots are much better than the sharps and the betting public would give them credit for. They played Cincinnati tough, and I thought last week they played a decent football game. They're a defensive team who runs the football, and I think that's exactly what is the Jets' kryptonite. We saw the Jets struggle in their first game against San Francisco, stopping the run. I think they're going to struggle stopping the run this week. And defensively, I think the Patriots are going to cause some troubles for the Jets in this offense. So getting this many points in my back pocket, certainly knowing the history of these two teams, no reason to really buck the trend. I'm going to take the Patriots plus the points. And like Mitch said, probably going to sprinkle on the money line as well. Let's keep it rolling, ladies and gentlemen. On to Sunday's action. We got the Steelers at home, laying a point on the Los Angeles Chargers. I almost called them San Diego. On the Los Angeles Chargers. Big Al McMorty, you're up first here in this one. How you feeling?
I still call them San Diego. Yeah, I mean, both of these teams have gotten off to 2-0 starts. I don't think anybody would have predicted that. In fact, I kind of thought that this might be the start of the Steelers' demise with Mike Tomlin, maybe getting his first losing season. But he's sort of running the other way with a 2-0, start to the season. They're a small home favorite, as you mentioned, 1 point. When you take a look at how undefeated teams have gone at home when they're not laying 3 or more points, and they're playing an opponent off a straight-up win, they've done very well. They've gone 75-47 ATS. I like Pittsburgh here, minus the 1. I look for them to stay undefeated.
The more and more I look at this football game, the more and more I think I'm going to take the Steelers. The Steelers' defense is the truth. Short, sweet, simple. I'm hearing rumors that Justin Herbert, his ankle is really in that bad of shape. He might not play. He probably will play. And if he does, I think TJ Watt is going to have a field day. I think that's been the story for the Steelers their first 2 games of the season, their defense. And offensively, Justin Fields just hasn't wrecked the car. Mike Tomlin, a veteran coach, You know, I trust them. Short, sweet, simple. The Chargers think this is their first real test. I don't really take much from that Raiders game, and last week it's not really much to take from that game either. So I think this is the Chargers' first real test of the season. On the road, I'm going to take the home team here. I think they get it done.
Yeah, when I look at the way these teams have played, I thought the Steelers in that game against the Broncos, one of the more unwatchable games you'll ever see, not just this season, but really of all time. 19 accepted penalties in that game, 26 overall penalties. There was only 75 plays or so in the game, so every 3 plays there was at least a penalty called. Some of those plays there was 2 penalties called, and most of those went against the Broncos in that one. So tough to tell what's going on. But the Chargers are starting to look like a team that, a little bit, I'm not going to say like the Patriots, but kind of a team that's just this methodical pounding of the football. So you got to be able to stop it. This game is going to be played between the tackles because what the Chargers are doing is they're running the ball with Dobbins and the Steelers. Of course, with Fields, he seems to be running the ball well for the Steelers. He's still a moderate thrower on a good day. And I think that for this particular game, you got to just play it close to the vest. So you got to take the points and any points you can get.
Next game up, we head to Minnesota, where the Minnesota Vikings are at home at the crib with the Houston Texans coming in. Texans, 2.5-point road favorites in this one. The Vikings start their season off 2-0. I don't think many people saw them upsetting the 49ers last week outright, but here they are with Sam Darnold. I think their defense has really been the story with Brian Flores. Look, this is an interesting game this week. This is probably one of the tougher games that I've seen for this entire week. When I look at this game, I'm going to take the Texans and lay the 2.5, but I'm not totally in love with it. And this game is probably not going to be a premium. Look, the Vikings defense, I think, is the truth. Just when you look at the film, when you look at everything of that nature, that's been the story of this team. And C.J. Stroud and the Texans laying points on the road, I'm not sure that's exactly where I want to be. Do I think the Vikings win the game? I don't think so. I think the Texans are the better football team. We are under 3. That's why I would lean towards the Texans, but it wouldn't help me sleep better at night. You know what I mean? This game is not a top game that I love this week. I believe the Texans are the better team overall. I lean towards their offense. I think defensively right now I would give the Texans a slight edge, but I think the margins are slimmer than people would give it credit for. I give the head coaching edge to the Texans as well. Laying points on the road with a young quarterback against a good defense is where I have questions and concerns in this football game. Hopefully the Texans can overcome it. I'm going to lean towards Houston in this one.
I'm all over the Vikings again. I was all over the Vikings last week with Sam Darnold, and I'm all over again this week against the Texans. I think a little bit different challenges here than facing a 49ers team that certainly is more developed and ahead of where the Texans appear to be. But the thing is that I do believe that the Texans have a much better quarterback than the 49ers have. And I thought it was a great strategy last week that the Vikings employed against the 49ers. And it's something that I've been saying teams should do for a long time. And that's basically rush the bare minimum, let Brock Purdy throw the ball. Because if he does that, good things are going to happen for the defense. And that's exactly what happened in that game. Meanwhile, Sam Darnold was throwing lasers out there, pitching the ball very well. But the thing is, Jefferson dinged up now for the Vikings, and it's early in the season already, so Darnold doesn't have him, and that will certainly change the game plans up a little bit. I still believe, this light number with the Vikings. I think that the reason why they are dogs in this game is because of that Jefferson injury. But I think they overcome it, and I think they just find a way to get it done. I'm going to take the Vikings in this one, take the home dog.
Well, Kevin O'Connell, he updated Jefferson's status a little bit on Tuesday after practice, said he was doing really well. That doesn't necessarily mean he's guaranteed to play on Sunday, but I think that they're somewhat optimistic that he can play on Sunday. But yeah, that's why they're getting 2.5 points here. I'm going to take Houston. They're up to a 2-0 start, but not in Las Vegas where they're 0-2. ATS, they failed to cover by 1 point in their season opener at Indy. And then last week, they failed to cover by a half point in the Sunday night game against the Bears. But I do like Houston to break through with a point spread win. When you take a look at how road teams do in week 3 after starting the season 0-2 ATS, they've gone 96-74 ATS. So, with the questionable status of Jefferson and the number right now below 3, at the moment, I think it's safe to take Houston minus the 2.5.
We head down to the New Orleans Superdome. Caesars Superdome, I think is what it's called now. We don't know what it is, though. But in this game, we got the Saints facing another NFC East opponent. Last week, we know what happened. We ain't got to talk too much about it. But no, we will. They beat the brakes off my Cowboys here in Dallas is what happened. Second week in a row, the Saints have beat the brakes off a team. Is it fool's gold? Is this team just way improved from last season? Are they the real deal? Mitch, how you feeling about the Saints and about this Eagles team rolling into week 3?
Well, I think the Eagles, certainly learned a couple things in that game that they let slip right through their hands, as you could say, maybe Saquon Barkley's hands. But even though, Barkley dropped the ball there, it certainly doesn't excuse the Eagles defense for getting carved up by Kirk Cousins. And it wasn't just Cousins, throwing like these, threading any kind of needles or anything. We're talking wide open Falcon receivers all up and down the field on that closing drive. I don't even understand what kind of defense they were running there, but basically it was just leave one guy wide open and hope that Kirk Cousins doesn't find him, but he certainly did. Hard to believe only 6 NFL teams unbeaten after just 2 weeks of football, one of those being the New Orleans Saints, and I got news for you. I got very little faith in this New Orleans Saints team. I kind of like what we've seen from them so far, but all good things come to an end. They come to an end this week in the Big Easy. I'm going to take the Eagles to bounce back and grab the win in week 3.
Yeah, there's no doubt the New Orleans Saints have been the most impressive team in the league thus far with blowout wins over the Panthers and Cowboys. And they've scored 93 points across those 2 games, but teams off back-to-back high-scoring straight up and ATS wins in which they tallied 35 or more points in each game. They've covered just 42 of 100 versus opponents off the straight up loss. So with Philadelphia coming in off that upset defeat on Monday night, I'm going to take the points with Philadelphia here on the road.
I'm taking the Saints. Short, sweet, simple. I'm just going to trust my eyes. My eyes tell me they've been one of the best teams in football this through 2 games. Short, sweet, simple. And the Eagles think they're overrated and overvalued. I think they have problems at the head coaching job, and I think those problems popped up last week. They had no business losing that game to the Falcons. No business. Also, I don't think people are putting much stock into them being as injured and banged up as they are. A.J. Brown is out. Defensively, they're missing a couple guys. The Eagles, I'm not that high on them like a lot of people are. And as this line is shifted, as the week continues to grow, I think people are starting to sell some Eagle stock as well. I'm going to take the Saints. I'm going to keep buying their stock, man. They look good last week beating the brakes off my team, man. I'm going to take them here. I think they do the same to the Eagles. Next game up, we head to Tampa. We have the Denver Broncos coming into town. Tampa Bay 2-0 this season. They look good. Pulled a huge upset last week, beating the Detroit Lions. They're now a huge favorite here, laying 7 points.
Not only was that a huge upset win, it was also an emotional win because it was the Detroit Lions that knocked Tampa Bay out of the playoffs last season. So they got a big revenge win by going into the Motor City and beating the Lions. So I look for a letdown. When you get a team off that kind of a win, they usually don't do well the next week. And teams off big upset wins as underdogs of 7 or more points, they've also gone just 76 and 95 ATS when playing an opponent off back-to-back straight-up losses. So this sets up well for Denver as an underdog. As I mentioned earlier in the show, underdogs so far of +6 or more points are 8-0 ATS. So again, I'm not going to bucket, just going to take the points when it's a big number. We'll take Denver.
Tough game. I'm going to be real, tough game. The Bucs, I feel like, are far and away the better football team. Far and away the better football team. And that's why I will lean in their direction, laying the huge number. I think they're going to cause Bo Nix some real issues. I think Bo Nix is not NFL ready. I don't think he's really one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the league right now currently. A lot of dinking and dunking going on over there in the Denver Broncos offense. I think Tampa, a really underrated team, or I think now people are starting to wake up. This was a playoff team last year. Who won a playoff game. And through 2 weeks, I thought people were really, underestimating them. They're starting to get some respect this week, laying a big boy number. And I think they actually lay it. I think they are, again, head and shoulders better than the Broncos. The Broncos, I'm not excited about their defense. And offensively, they look really stagnant. This Sean Payton era here in Denver, I don't think it's going to pan out the way people think it's going to. So give me the Bucks. I think they go ahead and beat up on the Broncos in this one.
I've bet the Broncos the first 2 weeks, and I got to say this past week was about as sad a performance as I've actually seen. Just a penalty fest of a game. Horrible for the fans, horrible for the bettors, and really horrible for everyone except for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were the beneficiary of most of those penalties. Now, the thing is that, the Broncos, aside from the penalties that were just ticky-tack bad calls, I think, they also had a lot of real problems, blocking TJ Watt and company. I think, a lot of people are going to have trouble blocking TJ Watt and company. But I think what we see here is that this Denver team is just really, really thin on talent all over the place. And, with Bo Nix throwing these balls to wide open receivers that are, 20 yards over their head, I don't see how they can move the football at all. So I think Denver's just can't score enough points to keep up in this one. Generally, seems like a great spot to take the points, a lot, just like taking the points with Denver on opening day at Seattle. It's the same number. But the issue that we have here is that, Denver's looking worse than they did in week 1. I'm going to take the Bucs.
We had the Tennessee, where we had the Tennessee Titans at home at the crib with the Green Bay Packers rolling into town. Hey, the Titans, 0-2 to start the season, 0-2 ATS. Trust me, I know, because I've backed them in back-to-back weeks, and Will Levis has wrecked the car in back-to-back weeks. Malik Willis looks like he'll be the starter again this week, and he returns to Tennessee, man. So should be an interesting game as we roll here into week 3. I'm going to take the Titans. I'm going to lean in that direction. I believe that the Titans are the better football team defensively, and I think that's going to cause Malik Willis some real issues. I think that the Titans will be able to run the football. Hopefully they don't put Will Levis in situations where he has to think too much, because then that's where they run into real problems and issues. The Green Bay Packers, they looked good last week, but I think a lot of that you have to look at, as I kind of said, I didn't like Anthony Richardson laying points on the road on a decent team like the Packers. This is going to be a close, ugly game. I'd much rather have the Titans here in this one, looking to avoid starting their season off 0-3. I think they will be able to run the football. I think their defense is better than people may give it credit for. And Tennessee, I think, has a slight, but I know it's a new head coaching regime over there, but I think they still, Malik Willis was in the building for a little bit, have the book on them, and will cause them some issues and some problems. So I'm going to lean towards the Titans laying the points in this one.
Malik Willis has a lot of experience losing in Tennessee. I mean, he certainly, doesn't have a lot of completed passes in that building either. But the thing is that, he's on a much better team in this one. Will Levis is the type of player that, not only can he not win games for his team, he can absolutely outright lose games for them. And to me, putting my money and my faith into a guy like that 3 times makes me, something I wouldn't be too proud to be. I'd rather go down swinging with the Green Bay Packers team that I don't love than put my money on a team that just looks to be a reach in the Titans. I'm going to roll with the Pack.
So, the number in this game at most places, the over-under anyway, it's sitting at 37.5, some places 38. It opened at DraftKings at 39.5, so it's come down, I think, in reaction to, the fact that Green Bay rolled up over 260 rushing yards last week. They relied on the ground game. That was actually the most rushing yards Green Bay had gotten dating back to 2003. I like the over. I just think the number has come down too much here. And when you take a look at how Green Bay has gone after scoring less than 17 points in the game, they've gone 65-37 over the total. Tennessee also 59-41 over when it's off a point spread loss. I think this is just a lot of value here on the over. I'm going to take the game to be high scoring.
In our next matchup, we head to Cleveland, where the Cleveland Browns have the New York Giants rolling into town. Cleveland, pretty sizable favorites here. I currently see 6.5. I think this is an interesting one. The Browns bounced back last week. The Giants have been the Giants. Daniel Jones has been Daniel Jones. Mitch, are you buying into some Daniel Jones stock? Do you think they can do enough to cover in this game? Or will the Browns get back on track?
Well, I think the Browns got on track in week 2 in that game in Jacksonville where they absolutely dominated, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The Jags just simply had no answers and really no yards and no points and really nothing going on until the fourth quarter, until desperation time. And even then, the Browns were able to tack on a safety, when it looked like the Jags had the momentum. This Cleveland defense is for real. Scoring defense and all that other kind of stuff. Getting that pass rush on with Myles Garrett. They are just way too much. And I see Myles Garrett on one side of the field. I see Daniel Jones on the other. I see a big, big day for the Cleveland defense. I'll be taking the Browns in this one. I'm not a huge prop guy, but I'll be taking all the Browns defensive props in this one. Interceptions, sacks, touchdown, anything you can get.
Well, the Giants, they're one of the 5 teams to have started the season 0-2 straight up in ATS. I actually like playing on road teams that start the season 0-2 Suats. They've gone 68-50 ATS since 1980, including 36-25 ATS when getting 6 or more points. And as I've highlighted a few times already, underdogs of 6 or more points this season are 8-0 ATS. They're getting 6.5. I'll take the Giants plus a points.
This game's simple for me. Daniel Jones, good defense. Take the team that has the good defense. I'm taking the Browns. I'm laying whatever. I actually might lay an extended number with Cleveland in this one because I think Daniel Jones is worth at least 7 going back the other way. Cleveland got the brakes beat off of them in week 1, embarrassed at home. But then they responded in a really good way last week, and I think they keep that momentum rolling forward here. As long as Deshaun Watson plays like he played last week and not the Deshaun Watson we seen in week 1 and like we seen, at a lot of the times last year, then I think they'll be fine. If they can establish the run in this football game, I think they'll be just fine. So the Giants, week by week, they're falling in my power rankings, and they were already down there to start. They're like 31. The only team I have worse than them currently is the Panthers. So I'm going to lay the points here with Cleveland. I think they beat the brakes off of the Giants. Next game up, we had the Indianapolis, where the Indianapolis Colts are 1-point favorites with the Chicago Bears coming into town. Chicago, hey, they fell short last week. Caleb Williams could not pull off the 2-minute drill to get this team the win. The Colts, they fell short last week as well on the road as favorites in Green Bay. Mitch, how you feeling here in this one?
I'm just really not big on the Bears this season at all, and I'm going to stay committed to that. I do like the way the Bears defense looks, and I think they're a little bit better than I thought they would, but this team is eventually going to wear down as they get hung out to dry time and time again by just really poor quarterback play. I think that, if anything, Caleb Williams just continues to be overrated. I think the Colts have been a little bit overrated here as well. They did not look so great in week 2. They were just not competitive in that game. I think that, to me, was the most surprising part of it. But I think this week they bounced back at home. Anthony Richardson, certainly still very much a work in progress. While he is a second-year player in the league, he's a rookie. Any way you slice it, I mean, he's already played more games this year than he played last year. I'm gonna roll with the Colts here. It's really a fade of Williams and this 31st ranked Bears offense.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts had a really bad game last week. They failed to cover the spread by 8 points. They lost by 6 when they were a 2-point road favorite. But Indianapolis does really, really, really well when it's off a loss, and it failed to cover the spread by 8 or more points in its previous game. It's gone 36-11 ATS. So I like Indy to bounce back off that bad game, and I'm going to take Indianapolis minus the points.
I love that stat there from Big Al, and I was already on the Colts in this one anyway. Me and Mitch are on the same train. Sick of the Bears. The Bears are my Clippers. If you watch the jam session, you already know what I mean. I'm fading the Bears as much as possible this season. I know Caleb Williams is a rookie, but I think the hype right now has this team overrated and overvalued. I think the Colts will be settled down here at home more so than they were on the road. I thought that was a bad number for him last week on the road. Laying points in Lambeau, it just really didn't make sense. This one makes sense. Chicago's not as good as people think they are, and I think the Colts are probably properly rated. Next game up, we're in Las Vegas, where the Raiders have the worst team in the National Football League, in my opinion. The Carolina Panthers rolling into town. We heard the news over the week. They're benching Bryce Young 2 games or 3 games into the season. Andy Dalton will be under center. I heard some rumors and whispers. They brought Cam Newton out of retirement in for a workout. Is the sky falling here in Carolina? Are they just as bad as we've seen in as recent years? Is this a spot where the Raiders beat up on a bad team? Or does Carolina get their shit together and possibly win this game outright and cover the number? Big Al McMorty, how you feeling here in this one?
I actually like Carolina in this game, mainly because they've been so bad to start the season. They scored just 10 points in week 1. They managed just 3 last week in their second game. But I do like them here in week 3. When you take a look at how teams do that start the season 0-2 straight up and against a spread, if they didn't score more than 10 points in those 2 games, they've actually done really well in week 3. They've gone 17-7 ATS. This is also a letdown spot for the Raiders after that big win as an underdog, against Baltimore. When you take a look at how teams do off 8-point or greater underdog outright wins, they've gone just 44-59 ATS versus opponents off back-to-back losses. So one team obviously playing really poorly. The Raiders off that huge win. Easy call, Carolina.
That's how this game makes me feel. Because I had the Panthers last week against the Chargers, and I felt like a complete idiot. But deep down in my stomach, I feel like the Panthers are the play in this game as well. I think that the Raiders, off that huge win, the other side is the play as well. Andy Dalton, a veteran, somebody who's taken 1 million snaps in the NFL, it feels like. He's seen defenses unlike Bryce Young. He's more comfortable under center unlike Bryce Young. Hopefully his veteran presence comes in here, gives the Panthers, a little swagger, a little confidence that, hey, you know what I mean? I know this guy's young. I know he's our future, but right now I think I give us the best chance to win, and they buy into it and they come in here and compete. Because I do think they can compete, and I don't think the Raiders are good enough to be laying over a field goal on pretty much anybody. That's just my assumption. So, great win for them last week, but I think the win has them overrated, overvalued. I know the Panthers are the worst team in the league, and the Red Rocket is not many people's favorite, but I'm going to rock with the Panthers one more time. Makes my stomach hurt, but I believe it's the right play.
A lot of big-time college football programs open with FCS opponents to start the season, kind of dress it up. It's always a home game. And for the Raiders, well, they're basically doing the same thing here. This is their home opener, and they draw an FCS team as well, the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young, the worst draft choice. He's in that Jamarcus Russell discussion already at this point in his career. And pretty much you can see sometimes when teams draft a player, and it brings down the organization for years to come and everything attached with it, especially in these salary cap sports. The Mitch Trubisky trade in Chicago when they traded away everything to get him with the 2nd overall pick, the Ricky Williams pick in New Orleans, so on and so forth. There's been many of these throughout the NFL draft, but rarely at the top of the draft. And that's exactly what the Panthers did. And, falling behind him, Bryce Young is a lot of wreckage along the way. Antonio Pierce has these Raiders very, well coached at this point, something we haven't seen from them in a while. And I do believe that this team is fired up. And one thing that we know about the city of Las Vegas, they love their Raiders, expect them to turn out in droves. I like the Raiders big in this game.
Next game up, we're in Seattle with the Seahawks, man. They're laying 4. The Dolphins rolling into town. The Dolphins lost their quarterback last week, Tua Tagovailoa, to another concussion. He'll be out for quite some time. Skylar Thompson, under center here for the Dolphins. Look, this is an interesting game. I'm going to take the Dolphins plus the points here, though. Skylar Thompson has shown me enough times that he's capable of just coming in and managing the Dolphins. When you have the weapons that the Dolphins have, it's not that hard and complicated to just get the ball out of your hands and let the playmakers make the plays. And that's, I think, exactly what they do here. I don't trust Seattle laying over a field goal. This is still a new head coach. Clappy's no longer there. Pete Carroll. We love Clappy here at Pick Dawgz, but he's no longer there. And this new head coach in Seattle, he has to earn my trust, especially laying these style numbers on a still really talented Miami roster. So I'm going to lean on the overall talent of Miami here. I think Miami's live to win this game. I don't think Skylar Thompson is nearly as bad as many people would have you believe. So hopefully he doesn't wreck the car. Hopefully Mike McDaniel draws something up here in this game. I'm going to take the Dolphins plus the points.
You got Mike McDonald versus Mike McDaniel, and I think there's only one coach that's going to be confused here about what's going on, and that's Mike McDaniel, as we've been confused by his decisions year after year, time after time, and not working with Tua, one-on-one every single day, and not saying to him every single time he steps onto the field, slide. I mean, that's called coaching. And this guy, not a coach at all. He's some X's and O guy, and he's lousy at that. I'll tell you what, I won't be taking the Dolphins anytime soon. I said it before the season. The Dolphins were in for a disappointing season. I'm a season ticket holder for the Dolphins since the day the team started. My family got their tickets. And I'll tell you what, we haven't been to a Super Bowl in a very, very long time and haven't won one in even longer. And I'll tell you, it's going to be a very, very long time because of the contract that they gave McDaniel prior to this season. That game plan against Buffalo is just absolutely pathetic. I haven't seen decision-making that poor since, the Steelers game last year and pretty much more than half the schedule last year. Not only do I think that the Dolphins have more talent than the Seahawks, that they should win this game easily, but with a coach that just prevents you from winning football games, they have zero chance. They're going to get slaughtered. I'm going for the 12th man. I'm taking the Seahawks.
So last week, the Dolphins were blown out 31-10 as a 2.5-point home favorite versus Buffalo. As you guys mentioned, they lost Tagovailoa in the process. I like Miami here. I agree with a lot of what Mitch has said, but still, when you take a look at how Miami has done as underdogs of more than 3 points, they've actually done quite well, 21-11 ATS. Also, road teams off 21-point or worse home upset losses. They've gone 86-58 ATS, so I'm going to take the points here. It's just too many points to lay to this Miami team.
Next game up, we're headed to Dallas, my hometown, man, where my Cowboys, we're going to try to forget what happened last week, man. We're at home again. We got a Baltimore Ravens team who lost in just about as disappointing fashion last week. They didn't get blown out, but losing at home to the Raiders was head-scratching. This is an interesting game. Two teams really that need a bounce-back game. Who gets the bounce-back game, though? Mitch, who you think gets it?
Well, it's rare that you see a team rush for 27 yards and win, and it's exactly what the Raiders did last week to the Ravens. They only threw for 233. It's amazing that they scored that many points in this game, right? I mean, 26 points on the board. They didn't do anything. There was just a lot of field goals in that game. And I got news for you, man. The Cowboys kicker is just off the chain. He is the best kicker I've seen ever in the NFL. I mean, this guy, when they lined him up for that 70-yarder, I honestly think he can make it in an indoor stadium at the right day. He just happened to be outdoors at that one, and that's why they called him back in. But I think at any other time, they let him go ahead and take a rip at it. But I think that the Ravens are in some serious trouble here, and I think, that they know that. They're going to try and run the football on the Cowboys. We saw the Saints just absolutely gash the Cowboys defense. I don't think it's going to work. I think you don't want to get into this type of situation. We've seen the Cowboys in these type of games before where they've gotten beaten up. They generally have bounced back pretty good, and I think they bounced back in this one. I'm going to take the Cowboys to win this one, probably fairly comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens, they were one of the 3 teams with the shortest odds to win the Super Bowl going into the season. So inexplicably, they're 0-2. Obviously, people expected them to lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, but definitely not to the Raiders. I like Baltimore to bounce back. When you get a winless team that made the playoffs the previous season, if they're on the road versus a non-winless team, they've gone 76-47. So, eventually Baltimore's going to play a really good game. They've got a really good pedigree, and I like them here minus the 1 point.
I'm not overcomplicating this one. I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys straight up on the money line. And I love that Baltimore is now the favorite in this football game. Look, let's not overreact. Let's think clearly through this thing. And that's how I'm thinking through it. The Cowboys got blitzed, ran through by a Saints team who nobody has the book on what they are, who they are, and how they got it done. The new hottest toy in the league is the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. Everybody's enamored with him. And he's had a great 2 weeks, Again, there's no film out on this, though. So that's kind of the thing in the NFL. And we know in the NFL, once you get up by a certain number, the other team has no choice but to drop back and pass, and numbers can get inflated. And that's kind of what happened in that Dallas game. When I look on the other side, though, Baltimore, I got some questions. I got some concerns. They didn't stop the Raiders last week, and I think they're going to have some real issues stopping this Cowboys offense. Remember who the Cowboys are at home at the crib in Dallas. Let's just look at the last 9 games. You know their home record at home? 9-1. Over the last 2 seasons, it's like 16-3 or something like that. It's something crazy. The Cowboys do not lose at home, and now getting maybe by Sunday we're probably gonna be getting plus money. I know they got blitzed last week. I don't think it's as bad as people want to make it out to be. I'm going to chalk it up to the Saints just being much improved and caught them with their pants down. And I'm expecting Dallas to respond at home at the crib. Next game up, we head to Arizona where the Cardinals are 3-point home dogs to the Detroit Lions. Lions lost outright as huge favorites last week. And the Cardinals got it done against a team that has had their number in recent memory in the Rams. What's going on in this football game? Are the Lions going to bounce back here, Big Al McMorty, or are the Cardinals going to keep it rolling here?
Well, I'm going to go in a different direction, Jay. I'm going to take a look at the total. The Cardinals have been involved in 2 very high-scoring games to start the season. In Week 1, they lost at Buffalo 34-28, so 62 points were scored. Then last week, they blew out the Rams 41-10. So 51 points were scored, but let's not overreact to these 2 very high-scoring games. Indeed, if you take a look at how games have gone in Week 3, when teams have played the first 2 games, that totaled 49 points or more in each of those first 2 weeks. The under has cashed 73 out of 120, so I'm going to take this under the total.
I like that. I like that a lot. I like that under a lot. I also like the Cardinals as a home dog getting points. The main problem and issue I have in this game is the Lions are still, over the last 3 seasons combined, the most profitable team to bet on. Dan Campbell is still the most profitable head coach in the NFL since he's entered the league. The problem is I now think the Lions are overrated and overvalued. A lot of those numbers, when you take out last season, were them as underdogs. Last season, we started to see them favored in certain spots, and they did overcome those. But kind of like we saw last week, hey, I don't know if they're as good as everybody wants to portray them to be. And against solid teams, kind of like they're going up against this week, I think the Cardinals can make some things happen. The Cardinals, in my opinion, should be 2-0. They should have beat Buffalo Week 1 up in Buffalo. And they looked really, really, really good last week. I thought, honestly, Kyler Murray deserved an award for probably one of the best performances last week. Marvin Harrison Jr., we saw him show up after being completely shut down in Week 1. Watch out for the Cardinals. I stated at the start of the season, I got my eye on the Cardinals. I think they're going to be much improved, and they're just starting to show me those tendencies. So give me Arizona plus the points. Home dog.
I don't know if that stat that Jay mentioned about Campbell is all of his coaching or just his time with the Lions, but I know that when he was with the Dolphins, he was terrible as well. But the thing is what he's always been is a really bad game day coach on the field. I know he's a good rah-rah guy. I know his players are always buying what he's selling, and he was like that with the Dolphins too. But one thing that he always does is he personally blows games. We saw it in the NFC Championship game last year. And now we see it again just week 2 into the season where he takes accountability for losing the game for his team. Taking accountability and all that stuff is all fine and well. It certainly doesn't put a W on the board for your team in a league where really it's decided by a hair, who gets the home field advantage, who gets all that stuff. And boy, even if the Lions do play up to their potential, which I don't really think is as high of a ceiling as people have put on it, just how much does that cost them? Meanwhile, the Cardinals getting disrespected, and I think this number looks pretty spot on. So anything you can get more than the 3 with the Cards is straight money here. But I think for me, I would just take the Cardinals on the money line.
We keep it rolling. We have the Los Angeles Rams at home at the crib with the San Francisco 49ers coming into town. Niners lost outright last week. They're big favorites on the road in this one, though. The Rams lost a pretty ugly game. Mitch, how you feeling?
Yeah, the thing is that I really loved the Viking strategy last week against the 49ers, and I think we're going to see a lot more teams go to this strategy, especially with Christian McCaffrey out. The thing is that, we saw the Vikings the 49ers run the ball effectively in their opening game against the Jets. But then we saw the Vikings shut that down and just say, you know what? We're going to see if Brock Purdy can beat us. And one thing we know about Brock Purdy, he can't. He can certainly use the tools around him, but without McCaffrey, he has lost that safety blanket, and he looks nothing like the guy that got this team to the Super Bowl a year ago, was even an early season MVP candidate. I got to say, I think the Rams have a solid shot to win this game outright. A real big coaching advantage here for the Rams as well. I'm going to take the Rams with the points. I think it's about as easy as it gets.
Well, Mitch, great minds think alike. I agree with you. The Rams were absolutely annihilated last week. They lost 41-10 to Arizona. But off that 31-point loss, I'm going to take the Rams as a huge home dog versus San Francisco. And when you take a look at how home dogs do, if they're off losses by 27 or more points, they're a solid 161 and 113 ATS. I've already mentioned several times how underdogs of 6 or more points this year are now 8-0 ATS. This is a pretty easy call. I'm going to take the Rams plus the points.
Hey, I'm with you guys. I'm on the Rams in this one as well. The Niners, they're really banged up. Mitch already mentioned that Christian McCaffrey's out. Well, guess who else is out? Deebo Samuel. So if the 49ers ever wanted to know what Brock Purdy looks like without his weapons, if they need to pay him like the top quarterback in the league, or if they need to pay him accordingly, now's the time they're going to figure that out. And the Rams, I think I trust Sean McVay. I know they got completely blitzed last week, but I kind of like playing teams that got blitzed. They usually come back the next week, especially in the NFL, the most competitive league in the world, where every single game matters. They usually respond in a nice way. And getting a touchdown right now and may get over it as we get closer to Sunday, give me the Rams. Next game up, we head to Atlanta, Sunday Night Football. The Falcons, did they steal that game or did the Eagles kind of just gift it to them? I think it was the latter. But still, hell of a drive by Kirk Cousins and the boys to go down and win the football game. They're now 3.5-point dogs to the defending champs, to the Kansas City Chiefs. Big Al McMurdy. Do the Chiefs go in here and blow them out? Do the Falcons keep the game competitive? Or are you looking at the total in this?
Well, the Chiefs, they were given 2 home games to start the season. They did go 2-0, but they came within a gnat's eyelash of losing both of those games. Easily could have gone into overtime versus the Baltimore Ravens in week 1. And then, of course, last week they did, needed a lot of luck against the Bengals to pull that one out. So, but they're the champs for a reason, right? I mean, this is what they do. They just win close games. They're now on the road for the first time this season, and defending Super Bowl champs are 11-23 ATS as a road favorite in their first road game of the season. This is a bad setup for Kansas City. I'm going to take the points with Atlanta.
I still think the Chiefs are the best team in football. They are a really public team. Everybody loves betting the Chiefs. I bet the Chiefs last week. I did get bit in the ass. But look, in this one, I'm going to take them again. I'm not sold on the Falcons. Again, I think the Eagles kind of gifted them that game. I talked about the head coaching woes of the Eagles earlier. If they turn around and hand that football to Saquon Barkley instead of throwing it to him, the Falcons are 0-2. And I think Kirk Cousins, he has a lot to work on. He still looks really stagnant. He still doesn't seem to trust that back leg. I think the Eagles are overrated and overvalued, and I think the Falcons, are going to get a little love because of that win. When I think that win was more to do with Philly than it was to do with Atlanta. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are head and shoulders the better football team, and I think they come in here and absolutely manhandle the Atlanta Falcons in this one. So give me the team who I think is the best team in the league with the best quarterback in the league. Honestly, probably the best player I've ever seen touch a football, and that's Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, we know if the game's decided on a penalty, we know which way that's going to go. That's for sure. But the thing is that I think the Falcons at home are definitely the play in this one. The world's going to be on the Chiefs. And what we've seen in these primetime games is they generally come down to a play or two. And that's just the way that they like them to be set up. And that is the way they've set them up. I think the Falcons getting that hook just is beautiful because the Chiefs, they might win a lot of games, but they also win a lot of close games. We saw that in both the first two games this season. In both these games, man, one was by a toe and the other one was, and that's against a winless team. And then there was, the other one that they won against a winless team as well. So they've beaten two winless teams. And, of course, they're half the equation to that. But at the same time, I think the Falcons at home are, I think Bijan is going to get his yards. I think they're going to keep it close. I like the Falcons in this one. You could say that, the Eagles gifted them that game. They also drove the ball the entire length of the field and put it in the end zone. With under a minute and a half left to go in the game. I think you have to give the Falcons some credit for that. I'm going to take them.
We move on to Monday Night Football. We have two games on Monday Night Football this week. The first one up, we got the Buffalo Bills at home at the crib with the Jacksonville Jaguars rolling into town. Who are the Buffalo Bills is really the million-dollar question. Or that's what I've been asking myself. I'm going to lean towards Buffalo in this football game. I don't trust Jacksonville whatsoever. They gifted that game in week one. They should have won that week one football game. And last week, they just looked dead from, quarter one. Buffalo, I believe they're fighting. I don't love the receiving core. I don't love their defense. But when it matters most, this team just keeps getting wins. Josh Allen, he's a winner. And they just keep pulling him out. And I think in this one, he finds a way. I'm not the biggest Josh Allen fan, but this season, especially through 2 weeks, I'm starting to put a little more respect on his name. So I'm just going to take the team like the better football team. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to lay the points here. I'm selling all my Jacksonville Jaguars stock.
I'm going to take the Jaguars here on the road, playoff team a year ago, and very much still have a lot of talent on this team. Buffalo, very talented as well. I mean, that defense was just stellar last week, and I think that was really the difference, in their effort against the Dolphins. I mean, they were pretty spectacular. But the thing is that the Jags just know they didn't play their best game, and Doug Peterson is, questionable when it comes to his play calling. Definitely, I don't love this third and short, and the guy throws it 45 yards down the field, and Peterson does that a lot, and he doesn't have great wide receivers to do that to. But we have to remember the Bills don't have great wide receivers either, and I think that this game is going to be hard fought. It's going to be smash mouth, and I like getting that hook, and then some. I'm getting actually 5 points here with the Jags. It's about 2.5, 1.5 at least too many to pass up. I'm going to take the Jags.
Yeah, I agree with Mitch. I think this is too many points to be laying for the Bills. I mean, yeah, they were really impressive last week in that Thursday game. They won by 21 points as a 2.5-point underdog. It's really the magnitude of the win is why I want to go against Buffalo here. When you take a look at how winning teams do off upset wins by more than 20 points, they haven't done very well their next game, going just 72 and 103 ATS since 1980. This is a lot of points to lay. I'm going to take Jacksonville plus a points.
Last game of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Monday Night Football. We have the Cincinnati Bengals laying 7.5 on the Washington Commanders. Hey, I thought an interesting stat rolling into week 3. None of the rookie quarterbacks have thrown a touchdown pass. Kind of crazy when you think about it. Mitch, how you feeling here, Sunday Night Football?
I think if you, believe what Jay said in the last segment or 2 segments ago, that the Chiefs are the best team in the league, well, you have to believe the Bengals are right there with them because it came down to a penalty on a game where, some of those calls like that were not called. And, we've seen the Bengals lose games like that before. One of them was the Super Bowl they were in a couple of years ago. I think the thing is, to me, what gets me is not just necessarily the calls, it's the inconsistency in the calls. But that really doesn't matter in this particular game because the Bengals enter this one at 0-2. Not an unfamiliar spot for this team. The Bengals have been notoriously slow starters under Taylor. In fact, that game against the Chiefs, probably a better game than we've seen them give in these early season games. But here comes Washington. I mean, you have one team that barely lost to the Chiefs on the road, and you have one team that barely beat the Giants at home. I think what you have here is a good old-fashioned mismatch. The Bengals, fans of Cincinnati, they love their team, and I'll tell you, they're going to come out for Monday Night Football because this was a team that was so bad. They weren't on Monday Night Football for like 15 or 20 years, so every time they're on now, they just relish the opportunity. Look for the Bengals to win this one big.
So last week I had what will end up being one of my biggest plays of the entire season on the Cincinnati Bengals against the Kansas City Chiefs. That was a perfect setup for Cincinnati. In week one, they lost outright as a 7.5 point favorite to the New England Patriots. So that was a huge bounce back situation against the defending Super Bowl champs. I just don't know if now I want to lay 7.5 points again with this Bengal team. We already saw in week one that they couldn't cover that number against New England. This season, as I've mentioned frequently already, teams are now 8-0 ATS when getting 6 or more points. So I think this is a good situation to step in and go against Cincinnati. I'm going to take the points with the Washington Commanders.
I'm going to lay it here with Cincinnati. I have faded Cincinnati in back-to-back weeks to start the season as premiums. I had the Patriots week one, and I had the Chiefs, unfortunately, last week. I love the Cincinnati Bengals. Everybody knows that. They're my second team, as I call them. I love me some Joe Shiesty, a.k.a. Joe Brrr. Look, and I think they beat the brakes off the Commanders in this one. I'm kind of buying some of that stock of what Mitch is saying. Monday Night Football, this is their chance to get their season rolling. They're 0-2, familiar territory. They always start their season slow. But the Commanders, I think, are one of the worst teams in the league. They just so happened to beat another bad one last week. But if the Giants had a field goal kicker last week, they win that football game. I told y'all the stat on the rookie quarterbacks. They haven't thrown a touchdown pass all season. But, the Giants scored 3 touchdowns last week. The Commanders didn't score a touchdown at all and won that football game. Tells you how bad the Giants are, but that also tells you what you need to know about the Commanders. They're not that great either. I'm expecting this to be the game that kind of is the propeller for the Bengals for the rest of the season. They should win this game by 14 plus on Monday Night Football. A dominating, performance. And that's going to conclude this episode of Picks from the DawgHouse NFL edition. We appreciate each and every one of you that continue to tune in and watch this video. Look, my best bets, as long as Mitch and Big Al Morty's best bets, can be found over at Pick Dawgz Premium. There's a link for all of that in the description below. Hey, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, the same for the guys. Let's make some money this week. Let's continue to kick the crap out of the books. We'll be back next week, same time, same programming. Make sure you're here. Share this with a friend, a family member, your betting group, your uncle, your auntie. It doesn't matter, man. Share this with everybody, and let's continue to make some money betting the NFL. Appreciate each and every one of y'all, man. It's been your host, Jay Briggs. See y'all next week. I'm out of here. Peace.